Bizarre Reality Media. The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones.
What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the expanse of deep conversational exploration into the fringes of social norms. I'm the one they call Shayn, aka the original ShaynOsquatch, and today for you guys, I have Lord Byron Jester, Radionics enthusiast, with me to explore the fascinating intersections of technology, spirituality, and the unexplained. Together, we'll dig into how modern advancements are reshaping old ideas and discuss intriguing parallels between science and the occult, from ancient symbols to modern science. Join us as we question the very fabric of our reality. But before we get into this fascinating conversation, just a couple of quick news and updates. First and foremost, the Patreon is going to be back under a little bit of construction. I'm going to be trying to work on some new perks for some of the tiers over there. I mentioned it on the last couple of episodes, but I'm going to bring it up on this one again. I'm going to be doing something called the monthly Bizarre Town Hall meetings, which are going to be live meetup group discussions. Either I can bring stuff that we can all discuss together, or if you guys have any stories or anything that you guys might want to discuss, or some experiences you might want to discuss, we can all kind of bring that together. As far as this one goes, it's going to be something that's going to be available for anybody that's paying for the Patreon, so you'll be able to even access it with the ad-free / early access tier, but it'd be something I'd really like to put together with you guys. So if anybody might be interested in that, just let me know through a message, something like that. Pop onto the Patreon, check it out for a free trial. Let me know through a message. But before that starts rolling, I want to make sure we at least have a little group of people to make it fun for everybody, and it's not just one-on-one with me and somebody else, for example. But moving on past that, the t-shirt giveaway is still going on. So if anybody is still interested in winning a free t-shirt of their choice off of the Bizarre Reality Media merch store, all you guys have to do is fill out a quick 8-question survey, all your guys' thoughts and opinions pertaining to the show, all things that'll hopefully help the show grow and improve as we're going throughout the year. So if you guys don't mind taking a few extra minutes to do that, I would greatly appreciate it. And at the end of the day, you might end up winning a free t-shirt of your choice. So that sounds like it might be something you're interested in. That link is available down in the show description. And if anybody is interested in catching the next live episode of Bizarre Inquiries, that'll be happening on December 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the usual time, on the Bizarre Reality Media, YouTube, Twitch, and Rumble channels. And if anybody has any questions, clips, or articles that they would like to submit for that, make sure you guys get it to us before that date. And if not, we'll just pass them on to the next episode. And if anyone is interested in possibly being a guest on the show, sharing their experiences or encounters, having a thought-provoking conversation with me, or contacting me for any other reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or you guys could always call or text the Bizarre Reality Media hotline, and you guys could call or text that 24/7, and that number is 313-364-1551. And if you happen to miss that, it is available down in the show description. And if you guys are so cool as to be interested in supporting the show and showing some love for the show and all the hard work behind it, one of the ways you guys can do that is by going and checking out the Patreon, which I would definitely appreciate. 2 tiers available over there, as I mentioned previously, ad-free / early access and full access, and there are 7-day free trials available for both if you're interested in seeing what they're all about. And if you guys might be interested in wearing your love for the show, you guys could always go and check out the Bizarre Reality Media merch store with t-shirts just $15.68 plus shipping, which equals out to about $20, so not too bad. And with the holidays coming up, you could always pick up a t-shirt for any fans of the show or any friends that might like any of the conspiracy type or cryptid like designs that I got over there. And if you guys might be interested in helping me out this holiday season with being able to make up for some expenses, with the kids and everything, and possibly even get me an energy drink to keep me up through the night, you guys could always donate to the show directly, which I always appreciate and will give you guys a big shout out in the show for. And you guys could always do that through Cash App, Venmo, or PayPal. And last but not least, you guys could always go and check out the affiliate links with some additional discounts and credits available for you guys. We got Dimension devices for some paranormal investigating equipment if you might be interested in that. And we also have Sticker Mule with a $10 free credit if you might need to get some t-shirts, stickers, or anything like that for your company or podcast or anything else like that. And I know times are tough out there, and as we're getting a bit closer to the holidays and money is getting a little bit tighter, if you might still be interested in supporting the show in some other ways, one of the best ways that you guys can do that is by leaving some love over on whatever podcatcher you happen to use. Leave a review, 5-star review preferably, and of course I will read it on the show and give you guys a big shout out. You guys could always go and follow the show on Instagram, TikTok, and or Facebook. And you guys could also share the show through word of mouth with any friends, enemies, anyone around you that you think might possibly enjoy the show. And you guys could also go and catch live shows and video content on the Bizarre Reality Media, YouTube, Twitch, and Rumble channels. And last but not least, you guys could always go and show some love for my other show that I do with my co-host over there, Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin, diving into a lot of the same stuff that we talk about over here, but it's all research, a little bit different of a format. It's both of us going back and forth with our own research. So if you guys might be looking for another podcast to get you guys through the work week, might be something you guys might enjoy if you guys enjoy this show. And every single thing that I mention is all available in the link tree, which is available down in that show description. And with that, let's get into the show. Alongside me today, I have Lord Byron Jester from... We tried to do a show a couple weeks ago, but we ran into some technical difficulties, so I can't even introduce you as a previous guest on the show because we didn't even really get to fully record that episode. So,
No.
But anyways, man, welcome to the show finally. Hopefully everything will run smooth today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Well, man, I guess for anybody that may not be familiar with who you are, what you do, because Lord Byron Jester is such an open title, why don't you let them know a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your work, man?
Yeah, well, I like to consider myself a third-degree black belt in psychobabble bullshit.
There you go.
But I've been researching the occult, the paranormal, and conspiracies since I was in third grade. And I was already pretty awake and kind of hip to things before that. But yeah, I basically just had access to boxes full of like books on like astral projection, books on the occult. I read Francis Barrett's The Magus and performed a couple rituals out of that in like fourth grade. And I had books on like, so I'm a little kid. This is back in the early 90s. But I had books on like the JFK assassination, Philadelphia experiment,
all the good stuff.
Yeah, the Philadelphia experiment was my jam back then. I love the idea of that. I was really into it.
Well, let me stop there for just 2 seconds. We don't have to get too far into it, but do you think that it's legit, or do you think that it's like just a made up folklore thing?
I don't know. I'd like to think that it's possible, but it's hard to say, because the government puts out so many fake conspiracies all the time. I mean, the JFK assassination is just riddled with it. You got
to muddy the waters, man. That's how they do it.
So, and I hope this doesn't trigger some people, but, at the time, so I'm like 8, 9, 10 years old researching all this stuff. I remember, the Roswell crash, right? That's like, for the old schoolers, that was like something that everyone talked about. Roswell, New Mexico, right? And I remember, gosh, I think I was probably about 12 years old, and I was watching a special on the stealth bomber, and they mentioned how the stealth bomber was they kept it secret for like 20 years, 30 years before they finally were open about it. And one of the reasons why is because people would see it flying around and they thought it was a UFO. And a lot of the early UFO sightings were flying wings. We also know that the Germans, World War II Germany, was also working on like stealth flying wings and stuff. So, so then I started thinking like maybe it wasn't a UFO that crashed in Roswell, maybe because it basically crashed kind of close to a Air Force base where they test a lot of experimental aircrafts. and then
you start noticing all the Jack Parsons connections too, and then you start digging into Jack Parsons. You notice he has weird connections in with that, and that makes it hard too because you don't know which way to go because you got jet propulsion lab type stuff, and then you also have him doing occult rituals in the desert. So like, did he summon something, or is it some of his experiments? Like, who knows, man?
Totally. So at first I started thinking, it's like the stealth bomber or a predecessor to it, right? Which would explain the government cover up, the misinformation, disinformation they intentionally put out, and everything. It'd explain everything. But then when I kind of later on, not even that long ago, maybe 8 years ago, when you start learning about these high altitude balloons and how like 90% of our satellites are on these balloons, and NASA just puts these things up like 10,000 of them at a time, and then on top of that, back in like the 50s and 40s and stuff, when we first started testing these high altitude balloons, we were using them to spy on the Russians.
Yep.
So then I'm thinking like, dang, dude, I hope that it almost makes me wonder if Roswell, New Mexico actually was a balloon.
Dude, I put a lot of stock into the fact that I did a whole show on it, and I'm kind of slowly starting to put together a book on it. And I'm not trying to take any validity to the whole UFO thing or aliens in general, because I definitely think that there's a lot to that, because it seems more fathomable to me that there's something else out there than us just existing alone in the universe. Like, that's not even a question in my mind, but the other side of it is just, I think there's a huge component with humans to this UFO stuff, that whether it be that there's a flap that happens and then they take an opportunity to be able to test out other stuff afterwards, because if people are already seeing UFOs in the area, what not a better chance to test out some stuff? And then I even get into this continued, I put it together a timeline that kind of goes from like World War II with all the rise of like the sci-fi propaganda, and then it kind of leads into these alien abduction cases. And then some of these alien abduction cases have weird little things like little mask lines that people notice during Pascagoula and stuff like that. And I think that there's also an aspect of, yes, there's probably abductions from extraterrestrials, but there's also probably an aspect of abduction from humans continuing these experiments that you obviously can't do out in the open and nobody's going to volunteer for. So if you're doing DNA and gene splicing and all this stuff, you just abduct people, drug them up, make them think that they're seeing aliens, and then you do whatever you want, throw them back, and then they, what are they going to go around telling the story that aliens abducted them, and then you're never going to come back to you, I mean, they've been working on these psychedelic drugs and stuff since back in the 60s. They're using LSD, but I guarantee you they've jumped way past that, and they probably have something that's close to DMT as far as being extremely psychoactive, but for maybe an hour or 2 hours rather than, 12 hours, for example, if you're on LSD. So it's easy to manipulate somebody's mind for that couple hours and then toss them back, And,
imagine if you're under a sedative as well, because you can dose someone up with a lot more LSD if they're on a sedative too. And then all they're just going to see is just like abstract colors, and every once in a while something will materialize and they'll see like a doctor, which will probably look like an alien testing their vitals or something.
They can just wear a rubber mask, man. If somebody's tripping hard enough on something, you just wear a rubber mask and it's an alien, like you don't know nonetheless. And there's a lot of these cases where people make reference to these like what looks like mask lines, or seeing people looking like they're wearing like military uniforms and stuff in the background. Like, there's so many connections to it, man. Like I said, I think that there's real abductions, don't get me wrong, but I think there's a huge portion of them that are government human abductions to continue, the weird Nazi experiments, for lack of better terms.
Yeah, and even with UFOs, man-made UFOs, I definitely think are a thing. You hear about the Glocke, the Nazi bell, and who knows how true that is. But you also have like the works of like Thomas Townsend Brown and people working with these alternative propulsion systems. And even today, we have the silent drone. Have you seen that?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. All it does is manipulate the electrostatic charge, and then it levitates, and then it can move around.
Dude, I've always thrown the theory that I think a lot of these things work off of like magnetic fields. Like, if you get into that whole aspect, you can also get into the whole aspect of there being like underground bases of extraterrestrials, and maybe these ships don't work outside of like Earth's gravitational pull. But like, my logical explanation on how these things are able to basically just pivot and shoot around zero gravity and not seem to use much energy, they have to be using magnetic fields, like reversing like the magnetic poles so that they're able to basically just float and hover against it.
Yeah.
And depending on how strong they make it is how high up they go. But if you're looking at it from like that perspective, maybe they only kind of work within gravitation of like a planet, like maybe these things are a little bit more localized than we think they are.
I absolutely think so. I mean, you got to think, even something extreme like time travel, right, would take less resources than interstellar travel, So I definitely think we should check all of the options here first before we start like adopting the Pleiadians and stuff.
I mean, even throwing in the whole thing about it working off of magnetics, man, if they're using wormholes to travel, I'm assuming that there's magnetic property to wormholes. There appears to be something to them like that. And if they're going from, say, planet to planet, not actually going into, quote, space, then they're essentially just using the magnetic fields of each planet that they go to at that point. Because we think of it as like we need to literally travel to this distance, but I feel like the most logical interpretation is to be able to find a Stargate or wormhole. Like, there's too much with that too. Like, there's got to be something to that. Like, why have governments spent so much time trying to look into Stargates if there isn't something to it,
Oh, yeah. There was a really good book written, God, I want to say it was around 2008. It had something to do with the ether and man-made UFOs and propulsion. It was by this guy, Paul LaViolette. Have you ever heard of it?
I don't think I've heard of them before.
Okay. It was a big deal like 15 years ago. I knew a few people that had it. And
new reading material.
Oh, yeah. But he kind of goes into Thomas Townsend Brown and the ether and all that stuff, Electric Universe. And I do think the ether and the electric universe, would totally explain these type of alternative propulsion systems. Yeah,
there's got to be something to it that's like, we're thinking of it in an extremely complex way, but I feel like simplicity is bliss. Like, we're looking at it like it's uber complicated, but it's probably a lot more simple to figure out than we realize it is. Because I feel like this type of propulsion also might even go into how some of these old structures were built, If you find a way to use the magnetic fields of the planet, like, there's got to be something to that.
Oh, yeah, possibly.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show.
With the revival of the geocentrism that kind of happened around 2014, 2015, I'm just going to say the word flat earthers. A lot of the flat earthers were doing a lot of experiments with electrostatics. And, they took like weights and held them on like helium balloons, and then they would increase the positive charge and it would sink down and touch the ground. And then other things where they increase the negative charge and it would like levitate off the ground. So they were doing a lot with Van de Graaff generators. They're doing this with like Van de Graaff generators. But yeah, they were doing a lot of experiments with electrostatics. And it's fascinating with the electrostatics. And when you look at like the electric universe and the ether and everything, when it comes to like UFOs, because if they're real, that's how I think they're basically working.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely agree with that. Like I said, I feel like they're using something that's already here. Like, it can't be that they're, completely coming up with, like, their own power source, because then the whole, like, renewable infinite energy concept kind of makes it a little bit more difficult, especially if you're, quote, traveling to different places, different planets, whatever. Like, there has to be something that's somewhat localized. Like, you're using some type of resource that's in the air or something like that. Like, and like I said, magnetism seems to be the one. I mean, even if you're making conductive coils, you can bank up energy using magnetism.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, electricity and magnetism are both products of the ether, So when you look at like the luminiferous ether and everything, that's definitely what I would think there would, because you would, if you're going to travel like that, you would have to have be able to tap into some energy source that's just there.
Exactly. And that would kind of fit in maybe with the whole thing that you see some of these UFOs like around the sun, maybe they're tapping in and like sucking some of that like energy out, so to speak. So it's just using something that's already here. And if you're going off of that aspect, I mean, that totally makes sense with the whole like radioactive property with a lot of these things that, if they're using, quote, like sun energy, star energy, it's clearly something that's going to be able to be found all over the universe. And, it's going to be something that's going to be mildly radioactive. So, I mean, that might even fit some of the components of that. Maybe it's a matter of like shifting between two different types of propulsion. You have your one when you're in, quote, deep space where you're using this like star energy where you can essentially get close to any star and be able to harness energy out of it. And then when you're on these planets, you're a little bit more localized and you're using like the magnetic fields of the planet. And while you're using that, it's also banking up additional energy because it's creating energy from, the two negative charge or from the opposite charges.
Oh yeah, man. Magnets are a trip because that's something that science still can't explain. And I'm sure part of it is intentional because they removed the ether from the discussion, and there's a whole history, and there's a whole history to why they removed the ether from physics.
Does that kind of get into some of your work?
Oh yeah, man. Well, I think so because I definitely think particle physics can't explain what magic is and radionics and how that works. I definitely think you would need the ether because here's the thing. Well, first of all, let's just preface it. So, I've been an occultist most of my life. I've really taken it seriously, like the last 15 years. And I build radionics machines. And this is one of my more basic ones that I just kind of keep around for when I'm doing interviews. Anyway, in its simplest form, and some of the old schoolers might argue with me on this, but in its simplest form, I consider radionics a thought form amplifier. So here's the thing, when it comes to the science of magic and stuff. So the first thing that people need to understand is magic is very real. All right. It's extremely real. It's real enough to where, and this might be polarizing, but I'm just going to say it. Every sorcerer worth his salt has a kill count. Okay, that's how real magic is. You can use it to terminate an enemy's life, and if you're good at it, you can do it pretty effectively. And not only not worry about getting caught, but not even committing a crime to begin with. So here's the thing. And the only reason why I'm bringing that up is just to emphasize the physicality of it. All right, because there's this kind of mindset that a lot of magicians have that it's all in the mind. You just have no idea how big your mind is, and that's true. It's kind of true, but it's not the whole truth. There's something physical going on. So if I can create a thought form in my head, how can that thought form create change in someone else's life 3,000 miles away, even if that person doesn't know I exist? How can you, I'll just say, recycle a child predator 3,000 miles away that doesn't even know you exist? How can you do that? There needs to be a background medium for that thought form to travel through. There needs to be and that background medium is the ether. So I think magic and radionics, I think it works very similar to the same way like electricity and light works, And, Nikola Tesla described light as a sound wave in the ether, So that's the main thing that I think is going on with when it comes to magic and radionics. Now, radionics, fascinating subject, fascinating history. It originally started, and it actually goes back further than this. I think they found radionics machines in the 1800s. But it originally started in the early 1900s, like right around 1915, 1918. This one doctor, Dr. Abrams, he was the first guy that kind of stumbled on it. And so what he would do is when he was using the stethoscope throughout his career, he noticed, and he'd be tapping on certain parts of the body and hearing the heartbeat and stuff. And one of the things he noticed was a healthy organ has a loud resonance to it. And a diseased organ has more of a thud, like a flat note. And then from there, he started kind of understanding the frequencies of everything. Not much different than Royal Raymond Rife later on, But it really wasn't until it was pretty much the next big guy that came along, Hieronymus. He was the guy that created the Hieronymus machine, which is more or less the basic wishing machine that you see today. It pretty much comes from Hieronymus. And here's a 9-dial one. The 9 dials are more common. This is one that I made, I think it was right before I even started selling them. But so it's so fascinating. So basically these doctors, they weren't just treating disease. And and they were treating them very effectively. One little side note here is radionics works pretty well for getting rid of cancer. All right. And that's going to tie into the story here in a second. So all these doctors started treating these diseases, back in the early, 1920s, basically. And they weren't just treating diseases and getting rid of them effectively. They were also diagnosing people. with radionics. And anyway, the FDA finds out about this, flips out like the FDA would, throws a bunch of these doctors in prison. Some of them died in prison. It was a real serious issue. It's one of the reasons today that a lot of radionics practitioners don't like offering healing services because of this. So they threw in, they confiscated a bunch of the machines and destroyed them. A bunch of those old machines don't exist anymore. You can still find them here and there. And honestly, I don't think the old machines, I don't know. I think what I'm doing is probably, I don't know. I don't want to put other people down. And besides, they're pioneers. You should respect where you came from, right?
It's updated technology anyways, man. I've talked to a few people that have taken some of these like older technology ideas, and with modern day technology, they're able to make them better than they were originally. So I think this is one of those situations that you gotta have to have the prototype, but as technology advances, it kind of makes the other components work a bit better. So it's not that you're putting anybody down. It's just a matter of updated technology. Of course, you're going to get better results.
Yeah, and cheaper. Like the old machines were expensive because they were made by doctors. All the crystals and everything that's inside there were programmed by doctors. So like how much is a doctor worth? At least $100 an hour. So if it takes you like 20 hours, 30 hours, 40, 50 hours to do something, it's going to be expensive. But so yeah, the radionics practitioners, they're all being persecuted. They're being thrown in jail. They're not allowed to do this. It happened in Europe too, in Britain, in the UK, England, And so a couple of radionics practitioners were on trial in the UK. And as luck would have it, if you want to call it luck, it's a sick form of luck, right? The judge's wife had cancer. And this is like 1920s, 1930s. This is when cancer is absolutely a death sentence. Chemotherapy had like a 4% success rate back then. And then the cancer would just come back anyway and you would die anyway, right?
Little fun fact I like to throw in too. Chemotherapy, if you look at when it started getting used, it was directly after World War II. And if you look into the chemical compound, it's mustard gas. So another one of those situations where they were just trying to load off some extra material that they had. I mean, it definitely seems plausible if you kind of line everything up.
Yeah, just like fluoride being industrial waste from the aluminum manufacturing.
Exactly. You got to put it somewhere and use it somewhere. I mean, the whole company of Cheetos started because they had an extra of a bunch of these little dried out pieces of cheese. So they had a backstock of them, didn't know what to do with them. They sold them to a company, they created Cheetos. Or not Cheetos, Cheez-Its.
Oh, wow, no kidding. So it's one of those things where this is one of the things I like about radionics because it really does blend like magic and metaphysics with conspiracy. Like it just blends them right in. Especially the medical aspect of conspiracies, which is like a lot of conspiracies is medical and health, right?
I mean, look at all their symbols. It's all, it's all like ancient Egyptian symbology, it's all Hermetic arts, like.
Oh yeah. Totally.
Even the main symbol is a cult, like the like spire with the two snakes wrapping around it. It's all underlaying, and it's just people want to say, oh, science and the occult are two different things, but all the signs are right in front of you that they're clearly combined in all the same things. Not to mention all these like scientists that are doing this groundbreaking research. They're all doing occult stuff behind the scenes. Like there's a connection here.
Oh, totally. So these practitioners are on trial in the UK, and the judge's wife has cancer, and he's freaking out. She's done for, right? So the radionics guys are like, hey, just for fun, let's just say like, I'm the real deal. What I'm doing is not a scam. Why don't you give me a witness sample of your wife and we'll see what we can do? No promises, but let's just see what we can do, right? The judge is like, I'm so desperate right now, I will try anything. Gives them like a sample of her hair or whatever witness sample they needed. And they got rid of the cancer. They got rid of the cancer pretty fucking fast too. And the judge was like, and this is one of those things where some judges might even be like afraid to drop the charges in a situation like this, or maybe even be afraid to acknowledge what they did. This judge stuck to his word. You saved my wife's life. I'm saving your life. Charges, case dismissed, charges dropped, you guys don't deserve to be here. You're my hero. And so shortly after that big persecution of the radionics guys, the doctors, because the first wave of radionics practitioners were like straight doctors, And there was some tomfoolery going around then. You know, there were people charging a lot of money when they probably shouldn't have been. You know, there was like this one. I think she might have been Jewish out of California. She's the one that like a lot of people talk a lot of crap about when they bring up radionics. You know, as like quackery, because she was kind of hustling a little bit. She was charging way more money than she should have been, but. So it kind of goes underground for a little bit, and then it kind of resurfaces later on. I want to say like the 60s or whatever for like agriculture. So what people started doing was, and this is where it starts getting really fascinating. We start kind of getting into this idea of like thought forms and stuff. So they would take a picture of a field and put a can of pesticide on the input plate and a picture of the field on the output plate and dial the rate. And turn it on and get rid of all the insects and all the pests without actually using pesticides on the crops, right? But this is where it gets fascinating. But they quickly realized they didn't actually need the pesticide at all. All they needed was a picture of a can of pesticide to get rid of the insects in the crops, you know? And that's a really fascinating one. And like right before the agriculture thing, because that's when it really started kind of taking off again, was the agriculture. But right before that, this rocket scientist, because you just brought up Jack Parsons, right? This guy worked for JPL, and he's a materialist, scientist, atheist, you know, doesn't believe in any of this stuff. His daughter had a bunch of warts all over her face, right? Some weird outbreak of warts, right? And so he hears about radionics. So he builds a tiny... Hang on 1 second. Oh. Okay, he built a tiny machine really similar to this, right? Where the input plate is right here and the output is the antenna. So it goes through the, and there's no dials or anything, right? So you put your intention right here, it goes through the amplifier and gets broadcasted through the antenna. His name is Stein. Okay, that style of wishing machine, most people call it the Stein wishing machine. I call that one the broadcaster, the one I just showed you. That's my product called the broadcaster. So he just took a picture of his. He built one, and he took a picture of his daughter without the warts. You know, like a couple of years, like the summer before she had all the outbreak of the warts, and he just sits there and focuses for a few minutes and kind of projects it into the machine. You know, like how happy he is that his daughter no longer has these warts on her face, and her face all clears up, turns it on, all the warts went away in 3 weeks. And this really messed his head up because this is a scientist, materialist, atheist type guy, right? This is someone who like went to college, Ivy League, works at JPL, you know, thinks all that voodoo superstition crap is just garbage, right? So now he's like, you know, just shatters his whole brain. So he starts looking into it. You know, he starts getting into like pyramid. He has a book called Mind Machines You Can Build, and a lot of it's just like, you know, like pendulums and dowsing rods and stuff like that. But he also has a basic schematic for the Stein wishing machine. But he so that was a big deal right there because that's a rocket scientist, and this is after radionics is dismissed as medical quackery. So that played a big role in the resurgence of radionics. And then people started using it for agriculture because you're probably not going to get sued for using radionics on crops like a doctor would for using it on a patient, you know. And so that's and that really started taking off. And that's when people really started kind of noticing the thought form aspect of it, where you don't even need a can of pesticide. You just need a picture of a can of pesticide and it'll work just the same. But it wasn't until the 70s and 80s, in this one practitioner, he's a ceremonial magician. He went by his name is Uncle Charles Cosimano, but he went by Uncle Chucky. Everyone knows him as Uncle Chucky. And he was the guy, like I said, he was a ceremonial magician. So when he saw radionics, he was like, holy crap, I can use this for magic. And he was the guy that was the first guy to like weaponize radionics, which, so he was kind of a pariah in the radionics community because these are people that dedicate their lives to health and healing. And these were people that were afraid of radionics getting into the wrong hands. And Uncle Chucky's immediately like, yes. Plus, he's a comic book nerd too. He was into like all the old comic books in the 60s and 70s growing up. So he always liked the archetype of the supervillain. He always thought supervillains were way cooler than superheroes. And they kind of are.
They write the stories better. Like, let's be honest here. Like,
yeah, and the character archetypes for supervillains, like you look at like Mr. Freeze on Batman. You have a lot of empathy for Mr. Freeze, even though he's a bad guy. So there's that going. But for Chucky, he just looked at like more like mischievous, where he just kind of looked at like supervillains who are just going to have more fun than Superman will. And so he's kind of a pariah back then, but he wrote a few books on it and using radionics with magic and everything. He's actually the guy that came up with the idea of the vampire box. And that's what this is right here. So what happened with him is I don't think he had the best diet. Most Americans don't. And his gallbladder, or no, his pancreas like ate itself or something. Anyway, the doctors had to remove his pancreas. And it was a long recovery. So he came up with this idea for a vampire box. And so what goes in here is that's the input plate, and you put whatever witness sample you want in there, and there's the output plate. And it has a filter in it. And what that filter does is it takes all the clean, usable energy and runs it to the output plate, and then takes the dirty or unusable energy and just filters it back to the input. And so he did that to recover from his surgery and not having a pancreas anymore. And he was able to live quite a while. And it wasn't until the Rona happened and, he got the jibber jabber. And anyway.
Yeah, that's all. That's a spiral down, but.
yeah. He basically had a couple of strokes, and it's an issue. Anyway, so he's not around anymore.
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show. Random side question, by the way, when you're running these machines, is it like you run it continuously type of a thing, or is it like you run it, you put your thought projection in, you turn it off? Because it kind of seems like maybe if you're doing something like, like a cancer treatment, is it one of those things that you just kind of put it on, turn the thought projection on, and you just let it run until it ends up getting rid of it? Or like, how does that work exactly?
So that's actually a good question. I prefer doing it, running the machine until I get what I want, right? Until it starts working, and then you can turn it off. But Chucky, he would use a pendulum, and so he would dial his rate. And I'll show you how to do that real quick in a second. But he would just use the pendulum and see how many hours. Like, is it going to take at least 8 hours? No. Is it going to take at least 7? Yes. 7.5. So he would kind of divine like how much time it would take to run it, and he would just set it on a timer. And so he would just basically be using it to amplify his thought form. Once the thought form was created, he would turn it off and let it do its thing, right? Manifest. And so let me grab something real quick. There we go. Okay, so I'll just kind of show you a quick way of doing. This is the main reason why I use the 4 dial for my life for these interviews, is because it's a lot easier when it comes to dialing the rates. So I just have a picture of the wealth card from a tarot deck, right? This is from the Crowley deck, right? And one thing I like about printing the tarot cards out, first of all, I like using tarot cards for witness samples because there's a whole thought form to them. And it's basically a reflection of the angles of the zodiac, of the sky clock, basically. So it's like, it's not just a powerful thought form because everyone uses tarot. It's also basically a force of nature, a part of creation, like a little sliver of creation in these. So, but you can take the back of it and write what you want. So let's say you got a wealth card. Let's do something practical that most people are concerned about. Let's say like a new job, find the perfect job. So I would just print this out on the back of it, right? Find the perfect job, put it on the input plate, and then put something that represents you on the input plate too, right? I just write my name on a piece of paper is all I do, So this right here is called a stick plate. It's also the output plate. And so what you're going to do is, I'll just not hold that up so it's a lot easier. So you start focusing on your intent, and you start rubbing your thumb or your index finger on this, you start dialing your rate as you're focusing on it, and you'll feel your finger stick, and it'll kind of skip across the surface like running your finger across a balloon, or like licking your finger and running across like a school desk or something. It'll just skip across the surface. And so you just dial your rate, you feel the stick. I'm not even trying, I'm getting a stick. And once you get good at this, you don't even need a stick plate. And then you take whatever you have represents you, like just like a piece of paper, the signature or a picture of you, or whatever your target is, put it on the output plate, and then turn it on. Pop! And just set it and forget it. Now, how I get my fastest results is I will. This real quick. So, like right here, I have a vigil candle that's lit and burning, right? And so I like, because I'm an occultist, I'm a magician, a sorcerer first, and I got into radionics later, right? So I like to just program my candle with all that information, and then it's just filled with all this clean, usable energy. That's another thing with radionics. It's a very clean, very usable energy for spiritual work, compared to like other forms of magic. And so I get my fastest results when I just program a candle, and I'll program it for about a week usually. So, you're probably aware that like the days of the week are named after the planets.
Yeah.
Like Monday's the moon, Sunday's the sun.
I've always heard the Norse pantheon too, because you got like Thor Thursday,
yeah, Thursday, that's Jupiter.
Yeah, Freya Friday.
Yeah, totally. And it's set up in a way, if you're going to work through the planets in ascending order, it's every other day. So it'll be like Monday for the moon, Wednesday for Mercury, Friday for Venus, And if you're going to work descending, it's every 5 days. So it'll be, Saturday for Saturn, Thursday for Jupiter, and so on, Tuesday for Mars. So it's kind of fascinating that it works out perfectly like that. I just always thought that was weird. But I get my fastest results doing that. Program a candle, because it has all that clean, usable energy in it that the spirits can take and use right away. The light from the candle acts as sort of like a carrier wave. And it's just clean. It's just, for me, programming a vigil candle for about a week. So I'll do it, like say I'm going to do something for prosperity, right? I will start it on a Thursday to program it, and then I'll take it off the box on Thursday and light it the next Thursday, just for Jupiter. That's what most people do for money, right? Jupiter. Say like love or Venus. You don't even have to do the planets like I'm doing. That's just something I do. And I have enough machines to where I don't have to repurpose a box right away, so I can let it run for a whole week.
That's what I was going to say. You could probably just let these things run. You got so many sitting behind you.
Oh, yeah, totally, dude. And it's so fascinating. And another thing with radionics that I think is important, because people are just so retarded about magic. Because, you got one half of the fence. People think it's superstition. It's just quackery. It doesn't work. It's not science. And then you have the other side of the fence where people are just terrified of it and think it's evil. Where my personal belief, I'm a creationist. I don't know if you are, but I'm a hardcore creationist. And I believe that magic and radionics 100% proves creation. More than anything, magic and radionics proves creation. Even from a heliocentric frame of reference, it still proves creation. You don't even have to go to like biblical Earth, to prove it, with magic and astrology. And, so I think that our ability to do magic is the part of us that's linked the closest to the creator, whatever that is, right?
I was going to actually make a comment, since I didn't know exactly what your thinking was on this stuff, but this is almost kind of like the whole idea of like prayer, if you really think about it, because it's a bunch of people putting a group thought, manifesting to hopefully do something in a positive way, because it seems like most people that are using the machines are trying to use them in a positive way, not necessarily a negative way, or at least the majority of them. But honestly, for anybody that may think that this is more like a cult, it's honestly kind of seems to me like it's almost like amplifying like a prayer. It's like the same concept, If you have 100 people praying for something, it's going to have the same effect as, say, you have yourself praying and using this box, for example. It's manifesting and putting that thought form into reality. And this is the other part where it kind of gets weirdly into science. You get into the aspect of like the double slit experiment, and clearly reality functions differently when it's being interpreted. So if you're putting thought projection onto something, it's almost like the placebo effect, like there's clearly something that's beyond this. There's something with the thought that actually creates something. It's not a placebo effect. It's not that, there's this, it's the mind that's actually altering our reality in front of us.
Oh, totally. And the thing with placebo is people, when they hear the word placebo, they immediately think it's fake, right? But here's the thing. That's the gold standard for like testing most things, So if you can basically take a sugar pill, and because you believe that sugar pill is going to cure your disease, it will cause a legit physical change in your body and get rid of that ailment. So it's funny how people think like placebo means it's not real, but placebo 100% is a physical thing, and it's so physical and it's so reliable that it's our gold standard for testing medicine.
I mean,
just not inoculations. That's the only one that doesn't go through a double-blind placebo study. But we don't need to go there. Right
yeah. No, I mean, it kind of just shows the fact that if you use something like this as an example for like a standard for every single experiment, and the body is still able to fix and conduct itself, it almost kind of makes it seem like those medicines may not even actually be needed in the first place. It's a matter of people having enough thought and intention on something that actually corrects itself. And this is where you get into like the whole aspect of, having a positive attitude, say when you're going through like an ailment or like a sickness. The people that are like, oh, I'm sick, I feel sick, I'm always sick. Those are the people that are always getting sick. But the people that are like, oh yeah, no, I'm not sick, you start feeling a little bit run down. You're like, no, I'm not sick. The next day you bounce back. It's like thought projection, and the mind like pushes it out because you're not accepting it as a factor. The same with like when people are going through like cancer treatments, if you give up, like your body's going to give up too. If you constantly keep that fighting mind, you're manifesting that positivity in your mind, and your body is correcting itself because it's pushing that stuff away.
Oh yeah. And it kind of segues right back into when I was talking about magic is the part of us that's the closest to the creator. Magic is not something that's separate from us or external from us. Magic 100% is something that people are doing all the time, and they have no idea about it. And how many people have you met in your life that are cursing themselves every single day by running these bad programs out of their mind? It's like almost everyone.
Even on the flip side, the people that are lucky and they always think that they're lucky, that's a thought projection too. And they always end up winning because they're projecting that thought into reality.
Oh, totally. It's one of those things. And one of the things with radionics too is, like I said, it's because there is a superstition when it comes to metaphysics. And it's not even just a superstition, like I don't want to be a dick and say this, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Like, a lot of the spiritual community are a complete joke. I mean, they are. You look at like some of the New Agers and even some of the more dogmatic, like Christians and stuff. But even atheists, like there's spiritual narcissism is such a thing. You see it in the occult community, New Age. Like I said, even atheists have like this kind of like spiritual narcissist kind of mindset. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I think atheists and New Agers are kind of the worst. Yeah, I mean, they kind of are.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, the New Agers are honestly just recycling all these old concepts and then slapping their name on them. And then the atheists, it's like they have a need for like spirituality, but they just don't want to accept anything. They just look for any reason to not believe and accept anything. And it's one of those things that whatever you want to believe, you're going to see clues that are going to make sense to you why they're going to make it so that you solidify your thoughts on that. So if you're an atheist, you're going to go through the entire Bible, you're going to go through anything and just look for any possible reason to just scrutinize it, Like you'll say, all right, all these things are true, but this one thing, that's not true. So that means everything else is bullshit now.
Yeah. And with the scientism, atheist kind of guys, the people that call themselves skeptics, it's so ridiculous because they're not skeptical about anything. They kind of use the title of a skeptic as an excuse to be retarded. It's so bizarre to me, But with radionics, it's very neutral, because it is just a device, And then you can do these things on there that do have these spiritual reactions, So that's one thing I like about radionics. It's very neutral. So even if you're like, because everyone has the need for some type of practical spirituality. Like everyone has a need for a miracle, But when you have these hangups you know, and then you have this tool that's like, that doesn't have those hangups associated with it. It's kind of like having your cake and eating it too. You know, you can get the results without dabbling in the occult, you know, but personally, I think you should do both. That's me, but I'm excessive. So, you know,
well, I mean, it's just like anything. It's about having like positive intentions with it. You know, like if you're using something with the right intentions, then I mean, even getting into like the whole biblical aspect of things, man, like I don't think that there's any of this knowledge that we're not necessarily supposed to have. It's just a matter of getting it when we're supposed to get it, because if you get knowledge too early, you're going to use it for evil. You know, it's not necessarily like we're not supposed to have anything. It's just, you know, if you give a 1-year-old a gun, they're going to end up shooting somebody with it because they think it's a toy. But you give it to somebody who's a bit older with more knowledge and more understanding of the world, then they're going to understand that it's a tool that can hurt somebody, and then they're going to use it in a positive means for hunting or something else, for example. You know, it's not that anything is off limits, so to speak. It's just the intention behind how you use it, which is a huge thing with magic, is the intention behind it. You know, are you using it for positive or using it for negative? It's all about the intention, because magic itself isn't necessarily good or evil. It's about whoever is the person conducting behind it.
Yeah, you know, and you know, most people get into this stuff. You have like some people that get into it because they have like some profound experience, and it leaves them like looking for that kind of stuff. But you know, like a near-death experience or something, you know. But some people get into it. Here are the 3 reasons. Uncle Chucky would always say this, right? Charles Casimani. They want to get laid, they want to get paid, or they want revenge, right? And these are selfish things, but there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, when you go and apply for your new job, you're doing it for a selfish reason. You know, putting your family in a bigger house is a selfish reason. It's benevolent, but you're doing it to better your life. You know, so but here's the thing. You can turn in 20 applications, 100 applications, whatever, resumes, email a bunch of resumes, get a better job. For getting laid, you know, just start talking to chicks. First of all, just don't be creepy. Just don't be creepy. Have decent listening skills and just go and talk to them. You're eventually going to get laid. Now, revenge is a different thing, because, you know, this is the thing where people think like this is where, you know, one of the reasons why you're not supposed to use magic for this type of thing. But I kind of look at it differently, because, you know, let's say someone wrongs you. The police aren't going to help you. It's not their job to help you. It's their job to fuck you over. That's what police do. You know, it depends on where you live. Where I live, the cops, I'm in Utah. I'm in the Uinta Basin in Utah, just down the road from Skinwalker Ranch. The cops here 100% serve the community. It's the only place I've ever lived in my entire life where the cops legitimately serve the community. You know, they're not pulling people over for no reason. They're not hunting. You don't feel anxiety when you're around them. They're literally just serving the community 100%, and they love their jobs for it. They love working here. You can tell. But, you know, so let's say someone wrongs you or does something wrong to your child. Let's just do one of those visceral things where you immediately want to shoot someone. Let's say someone molests your child or rapes your daughter or whatever, right? One of those horrible, horrible situations. You know, like if you were to go and effectively get justice, like from a mundane point of view, from that, you're going to jail. The risk of you going to jail is really high. You know, there's definitely people in prison that have gone to jail because they hurt someone they loved. You know, they went and took matters in their own hands, and they're in jail for it now for the rest of their life. So to some extent, I think revenge is one of those things, because like I said, you can get a better job. You know, you can go and talk to a couple of chicks, you know, but revenge is one of those things where you can't just go and get it if you need it without risking your life and possibly spending time in prison. You know, so, you know, it's just one of those things. Like if you know, there's bad people in the world. No, I mean, you know?
I definitely think it's one of those things that it's like, I don't feel any sympathy for example, if there was a serial killer that went around going after pedophiles. You know what I mean? Like, in the nicest way possible. Like, there's just certain genetic alterations to the mind that just need to be, you know, extinguished, for lack of a better term. I'm not saying that for most people, but anybody that touches a child, like, yeah, you're all bets are off for you, my friend.
and that's the one thing that I use as my metaphor when I talk about the pedophiles, because, you know, like a lot of the these neoliberals, you know, we're talking about how they can't help it. It's just a sexual orientation. They're minor attracted persons. And to some extent, they're absolutely right. They can't help it, which means you can't rehabilitate these people. They're going to do it again and again and again, you know? And so the best thing to do is just recycle them. Just just recycle the spirit, hopefully they come back as a better human being next time.
I mean, same with serial killers, man. It's a compulsion. If you have that mental compulsion, like, there ain't no fixing that. I mean, there's pretending so that they can get out of that situation, but as soon as the opportunity arises, they're going to take it.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's and even like small time criminals, there's a lot of people that just can't help themselves, Like I knew a guy in my hometown. I worked with him for a couple of months. But he was a musician, which is kind of how we started talking, which is probably the only reason why I even, but anyway, he got busted on some meth charges, went to prison, I think for like 5 years. And when he got out, he was out for like 2 days. He went to go meet up with like the Department of Corrections or whatever it is. And he straight up like robbed them. He like stole a couple of guns, some nightsticks, bulletproof vests, and then a cop car. Immediately got busted, and then got like 20 years after that. like the day he got out of prison, he gets a 20-year charge. So some people just can't help themselves, even if it's like small time criminals. They'll just stay in and out of jails their whole life. It's really sad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you ain't wrong there, man. Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to that deep conversation you crave. I mean, when it comes to, again, using one of these boxes, man, that's one of those things that it's just a matter of using it correctly, like with a lot of this magic stuff, Like, if you're going to use it, you got to make sure that you're using it for the right means. And revenge is one of those things that's just like a really, really hard line to pull. That it's like I said, some things are justified, but it's a matter of perspective. But certain people, it's like off the table, but use it with the best intentions. Like somebody wrongs you or cuts you off and stuff like that. You don't want to resort to this type of stuff, because then you're just getting into the dark side of this type of stuff.
And there is that problem with the younger kids. The younger guys aren't as into radionics. For one, it's so hard to make ends meet. I don't think a lot of them can afford to spend money on radionics machines. But you get a lot, because like black magic and Satanism and Luciferianism, it's a much cooler aesthetic, and black magicians definitely get better results than the other occultists for the most part. So maybe one of those pitfalls, say you're 19, 21 years old, you're a punk kid, you're playing in metal bands or whatever, or you're listening to heavy metal. I played in a bunch of metal bands, so I understand this mindset. But you get these kids that they kind of get that edgelord thing going, and they kind of get drunk with power. And there's definitely people in the occult community that will just curse you for no reason, and it's I speak out about it a lot, and sometimes I worry that I'm speaking out about it too much, like I'm just kind of demonizing the occult a little bit. But it's just one of those things. This is why I think everyone needs to understand these practical spiritual modalities, because I mean, even as like a Christian or something, everyone should know how to like spiritually cleanse their house. That should be like number one. Mm-hmm. Clean their aura. Number two, that's another easy thing. Learn how to like remove a curse or get rid of a negative entity, And some of these things you don't even need, like there are like parts of the Bible that you can, like Psalms. There are Psalms you can use to banish negative entities and remove curses and stuff. So you don't have to really leave the Bible, but you should still like know how to take a salt bath, clean your aura. Just be aware of these things and know how to fix these problems. Because even like with negative entities, like I say, you're not an occultist, so you're thinking, I don't have to worry about negative entities because I'm not fucking around with these spirits all the time, like these other people are. You can easily move into a house that has a negative entity into it. The house that I'm living in here, this is in the middle of Utah. So everyone who's lived in this house has been a devout Christian. In the 100 years this house has been here. And there was a nasty negative entity in this house, a nasty one. I could see the residue immediately, because we moved here from Western Washington, but I could tell right away. And I got rid of it. It tried coming back a couple of times, which I'm not really used to. It was definitely persistent. But the amount of residue that was in this house, this negative entity had to have been here at least 30 years, probably 50, 60 years, like.
Not to mention you got Skinwalker Ranch not too far from there. So I'm sure that there's a lot of built up like energy and entities that are all drawn to that location to begin with. So that entity that was in your house may have had nothing to do with anybody that was in the house, but just the matter of being in the area that you are.
Yeah, totally. But it'd been here for a long time. The residue was really thick here. It took a while to clear it out. And the spirits here in Utah are definitely different than Washington. Like Washington, man, I miss it. It's like land of like fairies and elves,
Yeah, the closer you get to Appalachia, the darker it gets,
Yeah, well, I might be moving to Kentucky, West Virginia area, and I am kind of looking forward to, because you hear so many stories and the cryptids and the paranormal stuff out there, so I'm kind of looking forward to it. But Western Washington, man, the spirits are so, it depends on where you're at, but it just felt like it was more spiritually dense than here. Like here, it doesn't seem like there's as many spirits, but a lot of them are kind of nefarious. It seems like there are a lot of negative entities here in Utah, but maybe it's a desert thing. I don't know. I haven't been to a lot of desert areas. Maybe it's just a Skinwalker Ranch. Maybe it's some of the Mormon stuff. I mean, I don't know if you've gone into some of the darker aspects of like Utah culture.
Oh yeah, 100%. Diving into like the Freemasons in general. Like I had Heidi Love on the show not too long ago, and I think she was involved in the Utah one specifically. But yeah, they're masquerading around like they're some type of like Christian based church, but they're clearly not. Like they're on some other dark occult stuff. I mean, even like the foundation of how they started is already rooted in like in some of the, like the Lesser Key of Solomon, like symbolism and stuff. Like that's one of those really, really weird rabbit holes that as soon as you start diving into it, you realize that there is like no real Christian base to anything that they're doing over there.
Yeah. I mean, a little bit, but yeah, I mean, Joseph Smith was definitely a sorcerer. He was definitely a sorcerer for sure.
I mean, one of the main things that they're doing is divination. I mean, that's like one of the main foundations of like Mormonism.
Yeah, they do a bunch of stuff, but there's also like these weird like dark underbellies in it too, because you have these multi-generational abuse cults that are kind of based around like Luciferianism, and super fascinating. Have you like looked into like the David Hamblin and David Levitt case out here and stuff?
Vaguely a little bit, yeah. It's been a while though.
Oh yeah, well, a lot of people don't want to believe in ritual abuse, but I'm telling you 100% it is real in Utah. There are these networks of these multi-generational abuse cults. And so you got to kind of understand the Mormon mythos a little bit to understand them. So in Mormonism, Jesus and Lucifer are basically brothers. Lucifer is the older brother. He was created first. So he is technically the rightful heir of the throne. For creation, so and part of the reason why Jesus and Lucifer had this falling out was God, Elohim, and Jesus wanted there to be free will and for there to be suffering to allow free will, where Lucifer wanted the earth to be like a paradise where everyone just like ascends to like a God level. And so they had this kind of thing between like everything being perfect and free will and suffering, right? So anyway, they had a falling out. So that's kind of the whole thing. So you already have like a framework for some of these multi-generational abuse cults, right? So basically, they like kind of sealed themselves to Lucifer, to the best of what I can tell.
Yeah, I would say it's inverted because they make it seem like it's following Christ, but actually it's inverted. And if you actually read the fine point of everything, yes, Christ is a main component, but they're not making him look like the good guy in the situation.
Oh yeah, totally. Or at least it invites someone who's like kind of thinking outside the box to be like, hey, wait a minute. Paradise would be pretty sweet. Ascending to God level? That sounds all right.
That's almost like the Freemason thing, where their view is basically that, Lucifer was the one that was supposed to be giving like the knowledge to everybody. So they look at him like he's the positive guy because everybody else was trying to keep knowledge from all of us. Like it's an inversion and spinning and flipping the story.
Yeah. Well, it's also like, even Prometheus. Prometheus was the Greek god tasked with creating humans, and he stole fire from the gods and gave it to us and gave us our ability to like heal ourselves and shit. And all the religions and myths are so connected to each other, and they're all based on the same principles, really. But yeah, so with like some of these like ritual abuse cases, they don't really have like this long lineage. But with the Mormon ritual abuse cults, I mean, they go all the way back to Oliver Cowdery, he's one of the guys whose signature is in the affidavit in the beginning of the Book of Mormon, right? So, I mean, we're talking 160, 170, 180 years. And it could go back further than that. That's just, they're just tracing it back to Oliver Cowdery. So who knows where he picked up from it,
Oh, yeah. So, I guess kind of hopping back into your boxes, man, just out of curiosity too, I meant to ask this a little bit sooner, but just to, like, if somebody was going to put one of these things together, like how much are you looking at?
Oh, it depends. For how effective my machines are, they're pretty affordable, especially if people contact me directly, but they could be anything from a couple $100 to a few $1,000s, depending on the vendor and how they build them and stuff.
Have you, just out of curiosity, since we're already talking about the Mormons too, have you ever come across any like Mormon groups trying to use any of these things?
No, I haven't, but I just sold a machine to a guy in Utah, in Ogden. Yeah.
So you might have your first Mormon group maybe possibly using one of these things, man.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but since he was the first guy in Utah that I sold one to, I've been selling him everywhere else, but this is the first guy from Utah. I beefed up his machine a little bit. I hooked him up. And I just made a super strong machine. I'm actually like still gluing the crystals down so they don't move around. I don't want everything flopping around inside the box. But so with the machine, I'll use the 9 now to show. So one of the things I did was for this is it's a copper input and a copper output. This is before I started using the nice copper plates. But anyway,
so you got a little tink right there.
yeah, it's an old one, But with these ones, I actually buy good copper sheets, all professionally cut, and so it's all nice and smooth. But so what I did was, it has an antenna just like the broadcaster, and then copper input, copper output, and then the stick plate is really tiny, and it goes right under here next to the machine, so I can just rub my thumb on it while I'm dialing my rates. And but that one is super strong, man. I put a preamp and an auxiliary amp into it, so your intention's being amplified right away. Then it runs through each of the dials. Another thing to mention too is each of the dials has a crystal in there. So this is basically like a crystal grid, right? And the crystals. That's one of the things I think you don't need crystals in a box, but I do think that the crystals kind of have this IQ and the way they communicate with the other dials, all the other crystals and the other dials. Because one thing about the machines is they get smarter and stronger the more you use them. They kind of become almost like alive, from all the energy and the attentions you're doing. So if you buy a machine like right now, your first few operations are going to be like, you're always going to get results. My machines are designed to get results right away. But after like 2 or 3 months, 4 months of using it nonstop, I mean, they like double, triple in potency.
They just kind of like fall into the user kind of a thing. So, I hear this a lot with like tarot decks, for example, that once you start using it, it becomes like attuned to that user. It's one of those things that it's like you're not supposed to use somebody else's. Is it kind of the same situation with these? Yeah,
I've never used someone else's. I don't even know what that would be like, but yeah, you would probably want to keep it for yourself.
Yeah, so it almost kind of works like how a tarot deck or any other type of like divination object would work. Once it becomes like attached to the person that's the user of it, it's almost like, and I don't want to say blended to the person, but in a weird way, it kind of is.
Oh yeah, I mean your energy is definitely going to be all over that thing, but you can clear it out. You probably won't clear out all of the energy, but you can clear most of it out.
And then just out of curiosity, these things like plug into the wall? Do they run off like a battery pack? Like how does that work exactly?
Yeah, my basic ones are 9 volt, 1 amp, and then my beefier ones, slightly beefier ones are 12 volt, 1.5 amp, and then my This next one I have coming, I actually have to order some special power supplies because I'm gonna need like 12 volts, but like maybe 2.5, 3 amps. So it has to be a lot stronger. But yeah, they plug into the wall. They're electric, and here's another thing too is my machines, like I said, I did a lot to increase their potency and IQ. You don't even have to have them plugged in, so you could just dial your rate, and then turn it on, and it'll still work. It's going to work at a much slower rate, but it'll work without even being plugged in.
So it's just a matter of like the extra energy amplifies it more.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's undeniable. So here's another thing too. What I just talked about, not even having to plug them in. This is one of the really special and amazing things about Radionics, but it's also one of the crappier things about it because there's so many bad vendors out there. But a Radionics machine doesn't have to work for it to work. So there was, in the early days when people started figuring out like, hey, like how much of it is the actual machine and how much of it is my actual mind, my brain, my intention.
It's giving you like a focus point, right? Is that kind of perceiving it?
Yeah. So people started making machines where they didn't connect the circuits, and then another person and still got results, but then another person made a machine out of paper. He just drew one out on like construction paper and put little dials on it with like little pins and stuff, so they can move around. And this is so fascinating, man. This is so fascinating. So he was doing it. He got some results, but not that great. So what he did was he drew a battery on it and connected the battery to the paper Radionics machine, right? Got way better results. And then every once in a while, like every like few months or maybe once a year or something, she would have to like erase the battery and draw a new battery on there because it would go dead. So isn't that nuts? Like, I mean, just imagine like the power of your mind to be able to do that. But so there's a problem though, because like, there's a lot of people, and I mean, I would love to just drop names right now and light them up, but I probably won't. But there's a lot of vendors out there that are selling machines that don't work. And the reason why is because they're going to work even if they don't work. They're just going to, work at a slower rate. And it's one of the things that really bothers me. Like I test all my stuff and make sure it's all works. Everything inside's all insulated. All my crystals are insulated and everything. There's no, I mean, they pack a punch. And anyone who's used my machines will tell you that, But yeah, there's a lot of people that are selling machines for $200, $300, $400, $500, maybe even $1,000, and they don't even work as described. And it's kind of messed up. And like I said, the reason why is because someone's going to get results anyway.
So they basically just slap together just like mainly like you were kind of saying, like the thought intention with the piece of paper. So it's not that the machine has any real function to it. It's just a matter of they put it together with the hope that your thought will basically make it work. Yeah,
basically. And here's the thing that's really messed up, man. It's so messed up is I especially in this price point range that I'm in, like the under $1,000, like right around the $200, $300, $400 range. Is I think I'm the only one that tests them to make sure they work. I think I'm the only one, because I've had people send me the other vendors' machines and I cracked them open and I was like, fuck this, dude. And it was such a nightmare to fix the machine because the circuits were so bad. I regret not just handing them one of my machines and just throwing the other one in the garbage because fixing someone else's machine was so much harder than just building machines. It's so much worse, But yeah, it's so messed up. So another cool thing you can do with Radionics that you can't really, you probably can, but with traditional forms of like magic and metaphysics, is there's a locking mechanism you can do. Are you familiar with like orgone?
Are you talking about the? Yeah. I was gonna say I actually got a couple of them sitting around this place.
Oh, dude, nice. That looks like a real one too. Like it might actually work. Yeah, because the thing with orgone is the uglier they are, the better they're gonna work. Than like the pretty stuff. It's like basically an ornament, So I have a couple of pieces, just like little pieces of orgone here. It's not grounded, and it's coiled. I think it's coiled to pull from the back and put out the front, right? But so here's one of the cool things you can do with Radionics is you can program something. So like with
I got these things everywhere, man.
yeah, it's a good one too, man. Like I said, when they look like that, they actually work usually.
I had a previous guest on the show that used to make them, so he like handmade me like a bunch of them and sent me like a really awesome box with a bunch of them in it. So I got a bunch of them sitting all over the place.
Macarba?
Yep.
Dude, that's dope.
I got a mushroom shaped one too that he made me.
Dude, a mushroom would be awesome, man. I like that.
And then I actually have another pyramid that's over next to my other fish tank. But basically what he did was he was saying that he put he specifically made the pyramid ones for my fish tanks. So he basically said put them near your fish tanks. So they're supposed to like react and like amplify and help like the fish out from like what he was basically trying to say with them. So he made them specifically for my fish tanks. So I keep them near my fish tanks. Inquiries of All Reality will return after this quick commercial break. And we are back. So let's hop right in.
So one thing you can do with radionics that's super dope, especially with organ, because organ is it's a really mild thing, and I think orgone is a complete myth for the most part, and I think what it really is just the ether. But anyway, that's a whole nother can of worms. People will probably get triggered by that without me being able to explain it. But so you can program your crystals on a radionics machine, right? And then you can lock in the program. And what that'll do is it'll hold that program in the crystals so that it doesn't have any like retardation, and it doesn't like so let's just say like a talisman, right? I'll just pull one of these up, right? Let's just say like some like necklace or piece of jewelry, right? Talisman. You can program it with radionics, lock in the program so that you can wear it like out in the sun, go swimming in the ocean, go through an X-ray machine without it damaging the program, right? So you can do the same thing with radionics. You can program like your quartz sand and your quartz crystals and everything, and then when that resin hardens, you get that piezoelectric effect too, which is pretty fascinating. So let's just say these, right? These were programmed for prosperity. This one's a pentagram. This one's like a little Metatron cube. Just like some little molds that I had. So these ones are programmed for like prosperity, right? So you can put this on your Wi-Fi router, and they're coiled to pull from the back and put in the front. So it's going to tap into all that, Wi-Fi EMFs, right? Runs through it, cleans it all up, purifies it, and then charges it with prosperity, and then it kind of acts as like a carrier wave to fill your house with prosperity. You can fill it with love, prosperity, protection, whatever. But like I said, you can take your quartz and your crystals and everything, program with radionics so that charge never leaves. And then my organ is also self-cleaning. I made sure that it stays clean. And but yeah, it's so fascinating the stuff you can do with radionics. And like I said, like I have a little ring right here, so you can program any type of talisman, anything you have around your house. Let's say like a chick working as a bartender or a waitress at a bar, right? She could program her perfume for like prosperity or maybe love and attraction, because in a bar situation, that's almost more important than prosperity, right? So you can program like your cologne or perfume for a chick, and then that scent will act as like a carrier wave to bring you like more wealth and stuff. When I was working in a bar in Western Washington when I first got into radionics, and it was so nuts. So like when COVID happened, that hurt the bar so bad. We almost lost it, right? And then, but when I was using radionics, I was able to turn business on and off like a light switch, And dude, my coworkers kind of got mad at me for it, though. I mean, they loved it because we were all making money. But I mean, you turn on like 3 or 4 machines, dude. I mean, you have to be good at your job, and you have to have a good crew, and everyone has to have the right mindset, because you're going to get sodomized. You have to be a killer if you're going to do that. And so I would just turn business on and off like a light switch, dude. And all this money was coming in. We're making so much money. That's actually how I was able to save up a bunch of money and move out of Washington to Utah. Was literally just from doing that. So another thing that I did, because I'm working in a bar, right? So I got all these tips. So I created a servitor. So anyone's listening, a servitor is like an artificial spirit, right? It's like a psychic robot that does stuff for you. It's like an imaginary friend, right? So I made one just to bring money, right? And then I would take my tips, all of my tips, and I would program them with that servitor, right, to just bring me more money. So as I would make all this money, and I started spending money, and just buying coffee drinks and stuff, it would put more of this money out into the circulation that would bring me more money back. And do that.
Spend money to make money, literally.
Yeah, that technique was worth its weight in gold. That was like one of those techniques. I couldn't believe how well it worked. I mean, and then so when I'd go places, like especially like a regular place where I'd always be spending money, I would always get free stuff. Like, hey, you want this? Hey, you want that? I would always get like from the servitor, the spirit, the energy and everything. And then when I would spend money places, they would get more prosperity, And it was nuts, man. That was nuts. But so now this is where we're guys. We bust each other's chops sometimes. We we rib each other, right? God, if these guys ever see one of these interviews where I talk about this, I know they're going to be like, I knew it. That son of a bitch, I knew it. Right? So on my days off, right, I would turn business up. I would just crank it up on my days off, and then I'd go back in on my Monday, and they'd be like, dude, it was awful. They just kept coming. And it was, talking about how bad work was and how shit just hit the fan. And like, this happened and this happened. Oh my God, dude. Like, I couldn't even, and I was like, why didn't you call me? It's like, they wouldn't let me.
I got to make a doctor call real quick. I'm going to turn this down for a few minutes.
Yeah, I felt bad about it after a couple of times. And I was like, so I stopped doing it. But that was a fun way to rib the coworkers, though, on my days off.
Hey, if you're getting paid commission, I mean, you ain't got nothing to complain about. If you're getting paid hourly, yeah, fuck that. But if you're getting paid commission, send them all my way,
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Turning business up like that, that's the difference from like $100 day to a $300 day, so it's just, it's one of those things. But yeah, I mean, it's so crazy the stuff you can do, Are you familiar with the work of Dr. William Bankston?
I don't think so either.
Okay, well, we were just getting back into like the science of prayer and healing and all that and mindset and stuff. So he's a college professor, another one of those materialist, atheist, superstition guys, scientism, the cult of scientism, right? He had an injured shoulder. It bothered him like most of his life, since he was a kid, right? I think he like probably busted it up playing like Little League or something. I don't know. Anyway, some hippie like Reiki guy at college healed it. And then he was like, what? He was not expecting it to work. He was just like, all right, yeah, go ahead, do a healing on me, because the guy does his little Reiki stuff, fixes his shoulder, and then he's stuck with this dilemma, like, do I pretend like that didn't happen, or do I apply the scientific method to it and investigate it, right? And so he did that. He started doing all these experiments with energy healing on these lab rats, So he was taking these lab rats and injecting them with like some type of like fast-acting lethal cancer, something you could do a lot of things. So he just starts doing energy healing on these lab rats. Got rid of the cancer, right? Boom, cancer goes away. At first, it would like ulcerate, and then it would go away. And so here's the thing: as a trip though, the rats that were bred from the rats that had their cancer cured were immune to that type of cancer. They couldn't get it again, so they couldn't even use that lineage of rats for these experiments, right? So then he's like thinking, like, okay, like, is it the technique? So he starts playing. So he starts doing like regular Reiki, blue flame healing, prana, all these different healing modalities. All of them worked. Got rid of the cancer on the rats. The rats were fucking happy, right? So then he starts taking pictures of the rats. You just take a picture of the rats, take it home, zap the picture. Same thing. Got rid of the cancer. The rats were immune to that type of cancer. After that, same thing worked. So then he started blessing doing energy healing on the rats' water, little water tubes, the water. And same thing, got rid of the cancer. And that's one of the reasons why I started blessing my food and water was from his work, Even something basic like what Christians do, where you just say grace is going to be huge. have a huge effect on your health. I think Muslims actually have a word or a prayer they do that banishes negative energy from their food before they eat it. So,
I mean, even going into the water thing, man, there's a lot of like cultures that have this principle about speaking into the water. Like you speak your intentions into the water and then you consume it, and then it actually makes these things happen because there's clearly some type of energy transference as far as like water goes. Because I mean, being baptized, for example, after the water's been blessed, like there's something about intention within water that cleanses and purifies things. I mean, even beyond like the symbolism behind being purified by water, like there's a conductive property to that water.
Oh yeah. Salt baths are a huge thing. You can get rid of curses, negative entities and stuff doing salt baths. And you just want to put some salt in the water, and the salt is basically just going to hold a charge. And then you bless the water, fill it up with a bunch of white golden light, wash all that negative energy off you. Super powerful. One thing I like using for that is the angels from the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram. So you're invoking the 4 elements in the angels form. So it's Raphael for air, Mikael for fire, Gabriel for water, Uriel for earth. And I'll just bless the water with that and do each of the divine names of God for that first. So let's say like for Raphael, it's going to be Yod He Vav He, and vibrate Yod He Vav He into the water and fill it with that white golden light, and then start vibrating Raphael and fill it with a yellow light because that's for the element of air. And then just kind of go through all the other angels and stuff. Dude, it's so powerful to do that. But going back to just charging like a glass of water you're going to drink or something super powerful, works really, really well. Anyone can do it, and it's pretty neutral, right? So just take a glass of water or even a water bottle, and just hold it in your hand, in your right hand in particular, and stare at it and just start saying like, you're familiar with the work of that Dr. Emoto, right? Where you say, I love you, I hate you, and stuff like that in the water and frozen and everything. Okay. So just say like, I love you, I thank you, I respect you. Like 3 or 4 times, maybe 5 times into the water. And while you're doing it, fill that water up with a white golden light, just a purifying white golden light, and drink it, man. I mean, like there's so much cool stuff you can do with these practical spiritual modalities, and even a lot of people that are into like witchcraft and magic and stuff, a lot in New Agers and stuff, none of them do any of this cool stuff.
That's because it's more on the light side of stuff, man. They're too, like you said, they they wanted to get into the dark because they find it more fascinating, more interesting. But there's just as much to be done on the light side of things, and it seems like at least a lot of the work you do is more on the light side of things, which is what throws people off. Is especially when you're looking at stuff from like a biblical perspective, you hear the words like, for example, like Christian mysticism, and that turns a lot of people off, not realizing that a lot of the foundation was mysticism, and a lot of these things are actually things that I think that we're intended to use and have. It's just a matter of, again, like I was saying earlier, like the right intention and the right time of having them, but you're not going to use them for evil.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, so the weird kind of thing that's going on with that, though, is like I feel like the black magicians understand these things and use them better than like the New Agers do,
That's because the New Agers don't even know what's going on. They're just recycling what somebody else is saying. Because a lot of these New Agers, they have a leader. That leader takes all these things from old occult philosophy. They understand what they're doing, but all their followers have no idea. They're just following the steps that person's doing without understanding the backing of it. But,
going back to like the Christian mysticism, I mean, there's that one story in the Bible. I mentioned it a few times in my interviews. A lot of people, know about it. But, Jesus heals that blind guy. Everyone's like, Jesus Christ, that was awesome. And Jesus straight up tells him, dude, that's nothing. You guys can do way cooler shit than that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paraphrasing. I'm talking like I would, like a...
I mean, even simply, like he said, even banishing like evil, like demons or evil spirits, like it's not a matter of like, oh, only specific people can do it. It's like, oh, anybody that believes in me has the power to do this, which gets into this whole thing with manifesting. If you have that whole idea of manifesting, that you have this whole kingdom of God behind your back, backing you up, and then you push that projection forward, like imagine how much power there is in that energy. Like that's why any follower of Jesus can banish a demon. It doesn't have to be like a Catholic priest, It's just a matter of having that power and intention behind it and manifesting it forward.
Yeah, and personally, whenever I'm like doing stuff with like healing, banishing negative entities and stuff, I prefer using the angels. I think they work the best for that. But you can use anything. There's been some people that have gotten so good at it that they'll call on like Mickey Mouse to banish negative energy and stuff, and it'll work.
Ha ha! Get out of this house! Ha ha!
And there's left hand path guys. A bunch of my colleagues actually. They'll use like demons for healing. I personally don't like to.
That's kind of like a weird thing to think about, though, because this is something I end up talking about all the time on the show. The whole thing with the Solomon, for example. It's one of those aspects of the Bible that everybody skips over because he can be a good character, he can be a bad character, kind of depends on perspective. But my opinion, obviously you're going to have some dangers if you're calling in demons to do tasks for you. But in his example, if you take demons, you make them essentially your slaves to build like a temple, for example. You're not doing something that they want to do. It's a matter of like you have dominion over them and you're taking control over them. So I feel like with this demon stuff, you definitely have to watch your P's and Q's with it specifically. And I'm not telling anybody to go out and specifically do it, but it's a hard debate on whether or not it's a positive thing or a negative thing to have the ability to control demons. I guess it's the intention behind it, or it's just one of those things that's too heavy that you just don't mess with it. You know what I mean? But Solomon obviously used it for positive means, which is, up for debate, but
he wasn't working with the demons in a positive manner. He kind of got what he had coming to him, because we do have dominion over this realm. This realm was created just for us. We are the apex of this place, and the entire spiritual ecosystems are completely obedient to us for whatever reason, right? But when you start like binding these entities and bossing them around and verbally abusing them and cursing them and stuff, you're dealing with something that you can't even actually see with your physical eyes, something that's been around for 1,000 years, maybe longer. You're kind of asking for it.
You're poking you're poking the tiger with a stick. You know what I mean? Like,
and but here's the thing though, because human beings have this amazing ability to have these intimate relationships with all crazy kinds of animals. My woman used to have a pet bobcat, mm-hmm. and you see people like raising tigers and raising lions. There's this guy in Florida. He has this giant alligator. His name is Wally. Wally, the emotional support alligator. This alligator is super friendly. It'll open its mouth and he'll just like scratch his tongue, not even worried the alligator is going to bite his arm off. This alligator will go to the public pool and swim with little kids. And it's just like the sweetest, cuddliest little, and it's an alligator. And we have this amazing ability to have these amazing relationships with so many different kinds of animals and species, and I think we can do the same thing with spirits too. And a lot of the demons, especially like the Solomonic demons, like the spirits from the Goetia, all the ones I've talked to, they say that the word jinn better describes their character than demon does, but I wouldn't say they're benevolent, but they're a lot more user-friendly than people think they are. You just don't treat them like shit, But they're, for whatever reason, they're eager to help. They're always eager to help. That's one thing I'll say about demons from like a pragmatic standpoint is they work really fast. They work a lot faster than a lot of other entities do. And then they don't really actually like judge you for it or anything. Like, they're one of those. It's almost like the difference between a guy and a chick when it comes to like parenting. Like a lot of guys will like almost like let their kid fuck up so that they can learn that lesson.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the way like demons will kind of operate. Like they'll let you fuck up just so you can learn that lesson. So there is that kind of obstacle. You do want to be a little careful working with them, and there can be blowback, but
you got to watch the P's and Q's, like I said, man, because they'll try to get you on a technicality.
Yeah, but I've never had any problems with them, especially the demons from the Goetia. I'm not even sure like where they originate from, but for whatever reason, they're very helpful to the magician.
Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And now back to the show. See, this is like a weird debate that I've talked about a bunch of times on the show too, is the matter of like where demons come from. Everybody has a different perspective, but it's a really, really hard thing to get a definite answer for. But if you're looking at it from the idea that the fallen angels created the Nephilim, obviously once they started dying off, their souls didn't have anywhere to go, so they became these disembodied beings, which are, you know, the demons. If you're looking at it from that perspective, like my opinion at least, is that obviously you're going to have your ones that are just pure straight evil. The ones that are, you know, full of vengeance, they're full of anger. And then on the other side, even though there's never going to be a way for them to atone for their sins, in a weird way, they are still within the angel lineage. So they might think that by doing good deeds, they might be able to make up for their sins, but, you know, it's beyond them. But, you know, maybe that is some of the intention behind these things, is that we view them all as just pure straight evil, and they're never going to, again, get their seat back in the kingdom. But, you know, they think that maybe, if they do enough good deeds, maybe they might actually get atonement for their sins or something, you know, or be permanently banished into non-existence, because I feel like being banished into complete non-existence is probably better than spending the rest of eternity as a disembodied being.
Yeah, you know, and this is one of those things, too, where I think it helps to look into the Quran and the Bible. You know, because the Quran kind of almost has what you were just describing, where like a bunch of the jinn sided with Iblis, and then some of the jinn later on kind of became more neutral or benevolent. And then I think even there's categories of jinn that I think became Muslim, like after the fact, like a millennia, like after the fact. So there is this kind of thing where some of them are outright nefarious, and others are kind of more, you know, whatever. And then the others are kind of like more benevolent and stuff. And, you know, so it's fascinating. It's the thing with, so there's a few different kind of interpretations of demons, like what you were just talking about, the fallen angels and stuff. You have that going. And then you kind of have this other form of like a demon that kind of just becomes so like whenever like a lot of suffering or a suicide happens or whatever, whenever there's like this strong psychic output due to like some type of chaos, right? It'll kind of create this this kind of energy, and then that energy, because it's born out of chaos and suffering, it's attracted to it, and then so it'll start creating these and attracting situations that'll kind of keep feeding it. And then after a while, it starts becoming kind of self-aware. And then after it gets to the point where it can start possessing people, it starts like learning language, and then maybe even starts trying to become like a body, you know, like anthropomorphic, I guess. And so, you know, so there's this part of demons that are just kind of created out of the human experience. They're almost like just a natural byproduct of the human experience, you know? And, you know, there's this one, the lady that wrote the Blood Sorcery Bible, Sorcerer's Cagliostro, that's the definition she subscribes to with demons. And she says she prefers the word daemon instead of demon. And, but she brings up this really good point, man. Like, so you take like a mental institution, right? Or an old mental institution, right? Super demonically active. You know, there's super negative entities there just feeding up all that suffering. But here's the thing though, right? Are the demons there because the mental institution is there, or is the mental institution there because that area was already demonically active?
Dude, it's funny that you bring this up. I was actually talking to a previous guest. I'll have to look it up, what exactly his name was, because it's been a while. But we were talking about this whole concept about like poltergeist, all these different things, not actually being like a conscious spirit, but rather just all this negative energy collecting and then eventually turning into like a form. So this is already an idea that I've spun around with other people. So like there's a couple of people that, you know, I think that might be some actual stock to this. But continuing on past that, man, I was actually just talking with my pastor last Sunday about the whole demon idea, about like where demons come from. And he brought up something specifically, basically saying that demons don't have the ability to create. So he was saying that there might be some stock in the whole Nephilim thing, but on the other side, if demons can't create, then, you know, they wouldn't be able to reproduce. So it would be basically like a stop after the Nephilim thing. But if you're looking at it from that perspective, that humans do have the ability to create, and we see this throughout the Bible, that we do have free will, we have the ability to create. So if you look at that perspective of basically what you just said, that all of this negative, evil energy comes off of people, and then it all starts amalgamating into something, and it becomes this disembodied being, and then it starts becoming conscious. That might even be a possible other explanation for an origin of demons. It's not that demons are creating demons, but rather that humans are accidentally creating demons.
Yeah. I mean, it's super fascinating to have these talks, you know, and even going back to the Quran, you know, because the jinn are like mortal. So they can die. They also do have like lineages and families and can reproduce on their own. So there's a lot of different folklores and stuff. And you have the fairies in Europe and stuff. It's super fascinating. So you know, I think it's one of those things where you know, we observe this phenomena and we have. So I think like sort of like UFOs. You know, I don't think there's like I think there's a few different ways to interpret the UFO phenomena, because like one, you have man-made UFOs, two, you have like either some type of time traveler or visitor, or maybe an older version of us that's still here but we don't know where they're at, or even this kind of spiritual component, because a lot of people have noticed that, you know, you can almost summon UFOs the same way you can summon a spirit, you know. So I think there's different phenomenon that has different explanations to it, you know, for spirits too. And you know, going back to what you're saying, you know, I think a lot of spirits are kind of obsessed with humans in the sense that they do vicariously live through us, you know, like a disincarnate, let's say like some drunk guy is dead, some disincarnate drunk spirit, right? Some you know, he might want to frequent a bar, or maybe kind of possess or influence a person into drinking more so that he can live out that part of his, you know, life that he no longer is a part of anymore, you know, or like a sex addict, you know, is dead, like a nympho or like a prostitute. Maybe that might kind of possess a woman into being more promiscuous, or just being gravitated towards the sexual experience or something. You know, you get what I'm saying. A lot of entities, I think they do love experiencing what we're experiencing through us.
I mean, that could even also be another like extended explanation that, you know, demons may possibly be like human souls that say, for example, that, like you were just kind of saying, they had such a tumultuous existence with one specific instance, like drinking or sex or violence or whatever it is, that they essentially become like an archetype of that. And once they become an archetype of that, that might be where like the creation of, quote, what we call demons actually starts to come in. Is just a matter of whatever the worst aspect of their personality is, like they basically become that. Or you even get into like this soul fracturing concept that, you know, the whole idea is that you're basically trying to purify your soul to get to heaven. So in the process of purifying your soul or purifying anything, there's pieces that break off. Those little pieces that break off could essentially be what these demons or these dark entities are that we talk about. And it's a matter of like, they say that this is like, you know, the Lucifer's domain, like this is his world and God is above it. So if that existence is essentially like happening right here, then it would make sense that these things are left here in this materialistic world, and then your purified self is basically what goes up. But that would totally make sense in the aspect of, it seems like as time goes on, the world gets worse and worse. Could it be because there's more and more people that have these things that are flaking off of them, so there's more of an existence of these things all around the world now because of just humans breaking them off and basically fracturing off from these things?
Yeah, I think there is that component, you know.
That might even be where attachments come in, you know, because they talk about like demonic attachments. You know, if something just breaks off of somebody, it's going to need to have some type of a host, almost like how a parasite works. So maybe that's how these attachments hop onto people, is as these things fracture off of somebody, they need to parasitically become part of something until they build themselves up. So that's where you get these like demonic attachment spirits of alcoholism, of this, of that, and then they build off and break themselves off again.
Yeah, I definitely think, you know, parts of the soul can splinter off. And a lot of cultures believe that there's different parts of the, like an anatomy to the soul, like where you have a part of your soul that's like attached to your like genetics and your bloodline, another part of your soul that's attached to your past lives, and then another part of your soul that's like that moves on no matter what, that's not even tied to this place hardly at all. And there's like these different aspects of the souls. But I definitely think that it's like someone.
It's like the Egyptian thing. They talk about the shadow self, that when you die and you move on, there's like the shadow self of yourself that stays here, and that your pure self is what moves on to the afterlife. Like they even have that mythology that there's this piece of you that stays back.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I think there's some truth to it, man. I do think that. But with the Earth, I think this place is intended to be a shit show. I think that's what it's designed for. I think so. So I look like this, right? So one of my first memories as a kid, I'm probably like 2 years old, maybe a year and a half or something. I don't know, super young, right? Could barely walk, and a gerbil bit my finger, and it's a gerbil, and I'm probably like a year and a half old, took a huge chunk of my skin out, right? And so I look at it like this, like I was in a completely unconscious state. And it was that suffering from being bit by that gerbil that woke me up and made me aware of not only myself, but my surroundings. And I think if you apply that on a macro level, that's what this place is.
Oh, yeah, 100%, man. That's kind of like I've talked about it a few times on the show, the whole idea of, I don't remember exactly where it is in the Bible, but it's basically this concept about purifying silver, that you have to, in order to purify silver, you, of course, have to put it under a hot flame. And if you leave it for a bit too long, then you're going to ruin the metal. But you essentially know that it's completely purified when you're able to see your image in it. So that kind of translates to this whole thing, that you have to put people under the flame. You have to cook them in order to be able to purify them, because you have to burn away all the bad. And in the process of that, there is going to be that extra bit that gets left off, which gets into basically what we were just talking about, that if we're being purified in this place, there is going to be the toxins that break off, and they're going to remain. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to have anywhere else to go. And I mean, exactly, that could literally be the demon concept.
Yeah. And, people lose themselves in the suffering too. Like, everyone talks about like post-traumatic stress disorder and stuff. And, shell shock, what we're talking about, how you can like lose these shards of yourself, from some of these experiences. I mean, how many people went to World War I and part of them never came back, even though they're here back home raising a family? There's a part of them that never came back. You can see that with like soldiers and stuff, but one thing people never talk about is post-traumatic growth. That some people experience these situations and they come out superhumans. They come out like they're not just going to go get a job at a factory. They're going to do something that's meaningful. They want to make the world a better place. They want to share their experience. Like everyone always talks about how stress and trauma can fuck you up, but no one ever talks about how that temperance of the soul to make you a better, stronger, smarter, more enlightened person.
Oh, yeah, dude. I've seen that a bunch of times. Like a lot of these guys that'll come back from some of the most tumultuous war situations as they're becoming like firemen, for example, because they've been in that high pressure situation, they can now think logically in that high pressure situation. Like people don't think that for every misery, there's a positive outcome to it. Like firefighter, prime example, policeman, prime example, if you're in that high stakes situation where you need to save somebody, but you also have the possibility that you're going to die. There's a flame around you, there's a couple other guys that are standing over here with guns and you got to get this person out of the middle. If you've never been in those high pressure situations, then you're not going to be able to think clearly in those situations. So you needed that trauma in order to be able to use it in a practical way later on. And that's prime example of exactly what you're saying. People don't talk about the positive side that comes out of some of these things, that you'll have some people that'll come back from a war situation and in literally any normal life situation, they're chill as a cucumber.
Yeah. And I've seen people go through a traumatic experience and it affects their relationship with like, what people call God. They kind of leave all that behind because of the trauma they experienced, and they might go back to it later on. They might not, who knows? But, but atheists really call this one out because we struggle. We always have to, and people do it with spirits too. Occultists do the same thing with spirits and demons and angels, that we want to try to put these human aspects onto these non-human concepts, right? But I remember I was watching this one debate, and this atheist, scientism, atheist, skeptic, retard. but this was his argument, man. It was like, if God is real, then evil can't exist. Because evil exists, I mean, God's not real. And I'm just like, well, how the hell do you even define evil? Are alligators evil? Are lions and tigers evil? Or wolves evil?
I'm always saying too, there's no growth without evil. Because there's no reason for something to be good if there's not evil. Everything remains constant. So the only way that there could ever be growth is if there is evil. So everybody asks, why does God create evil? Why doesn't he make this perfect paradise? Because people would never learn if they were in that situation. It's a matter of, again, you need to grow. If you're not growing, then what are you doing? And there needs to be tumultuous situations in order for there to be growth that develops. Like, that almost proves the fact that there might be a God, is because there is this battle that creates the ability to have growth.
Yeah, and like I said, people they struggle reconciling this stuff, and it doesn't help that, we have our memories wiped when we come here. This place is kind of set up against us to some extent, but you start figuring it out after a few tries, I guess.
Hopefully.
So I had this experience, man, when I was like 2 years old driving in a car, right? And I had this kind of out-of-body experience. I've been going out of body since I was a little kid, but so anyway, I'm like 2 years old, 3 or something, and fall asleep in the car, have this out of body experience. And what happens is, I'm probably like late 30s, mid 40s or something. I would assume, driving a car. It appeared to be a late 70s model. I got ran off the road. I think someone came flying around, crashed into me or something. And so I'm basically dying. I'm like off the road. Windows are all broken. There's parts of me hanging out that probably shouldn't be in a super lot of pain. And I asked God, while I'm dying, like, dude, if I'm not gonna make it, can we just call it good right now so that I don't feel this anymore? And as soon as I said that, everything started dissolving and turning into a white golden light. And as everything starts dissolving like this, first of all my pain went away, complete disassociation. My life flashed before my eyes. And I remember there was a couple of things that I did wrong that stood out, but I don't remember what they are. And as everything starts dissolving into this white golden light, I, kind of ascend a little bit. And when I tap into that white golden light now, I can feel it activating this part of my brain. So I think that's pretty fascinating. If you ever looked into like seen the documentary, The God Gene or something, meditation and stuff. But so I'm in this, it's just black. And there's like this golden light, bright golden light. And it's like imposing. It's everywhere. It's like kind of pushing into me. It's everywhere. Right. And then I look behind me and I see a more silver light, kind of looks like it's down the end of a tunnel. Right. And I'm like, oh shit. And I remember being here before. And I was like, what do I do? What am I supposed to do? And I can hear some people trying to call my name back there. And I start thinking, like, what did I do last time I was here? And then I try to think about my the life that I just died from. And already I couldn't remember it. Even though my life just flashed before my eyes, it's already gone, right? So I'm like, fuck, all right. Maybe I can like tiptoe down the other one, maybe get a little closer look. And I start doing that, and then I get sucked into it, and I hear myself yell to me, don't fucking forget this time. And then I wake up in the car, and I'm like, forget what? Damn it.
Oh.
So, like, it's crazy, it's like all throughout my childhood, I'm like, what was I supposed to do? What was I supposed to remember? It just drove me nuts.
Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break, so stay tuned. And now back to the show. It's one of those things, man, that it's almost kind of like the DMT thing, that I feel like some of these experiences are just so far beyond human comprehension that we understand them when we're in our ethereal version of ourselves. But once we get clocked down by the physical version, it's like the clunky version, your brain just can't fathom or comprehend it because you're now clocked down by not just being a quote energy being or some type of like soul. You're literally dampered down now by a physical vessel.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've been wondering about this too is I wonder if the bright golden light is kind of associated with the sun, and the silver light was associated by the moon. But are you? And this is something I thought about recently. I was on Meta Mysteries, and it popped. And I think it was actually like the first time I did Cult of Conspiracy with Jonathan and Jacob. But it was right after I did the interview. It kind of popped in my head that so I wonder if the bright gold, this is what I assume anyway, that the bright golden light takes you right back to the creator, and silver light takes you back to the reincarnation trap, right? What people call the reincarnation trap. So I started wondering, like, are you familiar with the Tree of Life glyph?
Yeah.
From Kabbalah?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you look at, like, first of all, you know how, like, Mercury is like the harbinger of souls. He kind of carries souls to the afterlife, through the afterlife, right? Well, if you look where that bar is, it's attached to Mercury, right? And that's in between the moon and the sun. And if you look at the other side of the sun, Teperoth, it goes straight up to Keter, which is like the source of God, the crown, the seat of God, right? And then on the other side of the moon, it's the earth. So I almost wonder if that Tree of Life glyph in Kabbalah is kind of talking about
it's like a map.
Yeah, exactly. Like a map. Yeah.
Wow, man. This has definitely been a fascinating show, and we'll definitely have to do a round two. Unfortunately, the family popped in the door, so I don't want to keep them waiting too much longer. But yeah, dude, we'll definitely have to do a round two at some point, because we dived into so many fascinating methods of thought, man, that I know that we still got a lot more to talk about, man.
And dude, you're such an easy guy to talk to because you're so open-minded to so many different things, and you've been doing it long enough to where I talk about some weird stuff, but you were hanging in there the entire time, adding a lot to the conversation. Super easy guy to talk to, I got to say.
Well, I appreciate that, man. That's what I try to do, at least as a podcaster, not just be the typical host that just bombards you with questions, but I want to try to give back as much of the conversation as what my guests do. And if I can, push to my guests to, possibly have a new realm of thought, or even just trying to break down the concepts a little bit better for the listeners, man. Like, that's all I'm trying to do here, man. And I don't try to judge anybody. I don't try to tell anybody their perspective is wrong. Whole premise of the show, man, increase of our reality. I'm trying to acquire everybody's perspective, because the best spot is always in the middle, man. And the only way to ever figure out what that spot is to be able to get everybody's opinions on this strange reality we live in, man. And it doesn't matter like what background you are, whether you're an occultist, a Wiccan, a Christian, whatever, man. I want to hear people's perspectives. I want to try to understand this reality. And just because a lot of my views are obviously, like I'm a Christian and stuff, but I definitely get into a lot more of the sci-fi science stuff, all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't let any realm of faith or anything like that clock me back from any other realm of thought. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And you never know when something might click.
Yeah, exactly. Because
you never know when someone's going to have like some tiny little piece of that puzzle.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, man. It's just a matter of, again, just trying to understand stuff from a different perspective. And I'm a very analytical-minded person, but, I'm always going to interpret it that way. And weirdly enough, the analytical mind is what brought me back into, kind of having a Christian faith and everything. It's just, once you start seeing all these pieces, all these clues, like stuff starts kind of lining up and making sense. And a lot of this stuff we're talking about today, man, people count it as magic. They call it woo-woo, all this type of stuff. But it seems like it's just like a lot of stuff in this universe, man. With a lot more understanding, there's a method to it. There's an understanding to it. The only reason it exists in this realm of woo-woo or magic is because people don't fully understand it yet. But once we are able to fully understand it, then it doesn't become so mysterious. It doesn't become so woo-woo anymore. It's a matter of, this is the way our reality conducts and functions. It's just a matter of knowing how to assess it and use it properly.
Yeah, and I've made a lot of people believers, because a lot of people, when I worked at the bar, man, I was so open about everything. I was doing magic for people at the bar all the time. And then, like I said, being able to turn business on and off like a light switch. People would come up to me and ask me to stop a couple of times. Like, yeah, can you just turn it down a little bit? Like, yeah, all right, sorry, I'll turn it down. But there's so many times where, someone had a issue they're dealing with, and they come back, and you can tell they're afraid to ask me. They're like, got their head down, so like this, like, hey, Byron. Like, yeah, is like, start telling me the story about what they have going on in their life. And I'm like, all right. So hit the printer paper, pull out a piece of paper, give them a pen, like, okay, write down your name and what you need to happen, and I'll see what I can do. And like, thank you, you know. And then so many times, man, they'd come back to me like, dude, it had, because you get so used to like working these miracles in your life, you get so used to it, you know, you just kind of forget that it's kind of a big deal, you know. And so many times people come up to me and be like, dude, it happened. It just like you said, this happened, and then I got it, just like you said. Like super stoked about it. I'm like, oh, that's cool, man. I'm glad it worked out. You know? I get so used to it. But yeah, real quick for anyone that wants to learn more, if you have any questions too, because I'm very generous with my knowledge, my main YouTube channel is MyApotheosis. Instagram. I'm sure you'll have everything linked down below.
Yeah, I'll have all the links down below, but you can still tell people where to go.
Yeah, so my main YouTube channel is MyApotheosis. MyApotheosis is also my Etsy shop. I have a domain name, LordByronJester.com, which I'm going to be getting set up here pretty soon. And then my Instagram is Lord Byron Jester, all lowercase, all one word. So Lord Byron Jester. You can find me. There's enough interviews of me and stuff now, just about to where. Plus, it's a weird name.
Yeah, you can find that one easy. It pops up right away.
Oh, totally, man. Totally. So I'd love to hear from you guys. So if you guys got any questions, you know, interested in radionics, interested in magic, conspiracies, whatever, any podcasts out there want to do an interview, hit me up, you know. So, okay. Or if you want to tell me I'm a crazy bastard.
That's always fun, too.
Yeah, you know, at your own risk. Buyer beware, dude.
Well, man, before
I'm not really like that. I'm not a petty person, you know. I'm pretty much a literal saint. I save a lot of people's lives and help people out.
Hey,
I like doing that.
I always say it's a matter of freedom of speech, man. I always joke on my other show, Bizarre Encounters, that, you know, we only take 1 and 5 star reviews, but if you put the 1 star, we're probably going to ridicule you, but it's all in good fun.
Oh yeah, man. Dude. Some of the ones, whenever I go on a podcast on Apple and stuff, and I read some of the 1 star reviews, you know. Jonathan from Cult and Meta, man, he just got lit up on these 1 star reviews because he said something about the rapture and people took it the wrong way. And they just, when I see that kind of stuff, I'm like, man, do I really want my own podcast? Because I really want my own podcast. When I start seeing that, some of the comments you get, Greg Carlwood, you know, he's not exactly like a polarizing figure in the podcasting space. And even he gets these horrible comments every once in a while because someone said something in passing and someone took it the wrong way. I'm like, man, do I want to deal with that? Do I really want to deal with that?
You always got to keep in your mind, though, that the trolls are always going to give their opinions because they can't do what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, some of these people aren't even trolls. They just... You know, you hear a 2-hour interview, you hear one sentence that you don't agree with, and you're going to leave a 1 star review and start talking all this crap. And it's like, dude, like, they talked for 2 hours, and that's what you got out of it? A 2-hour conversation, that's what you got out of it?
I mean, that's what ends up happening with a lot of the mainstream news stuff, man. They'll have like a full speech from somebody, and then they'll just sample one little line, and they'll make the person look like a complete enemy, man.
Oh, yeah, man. The early days of Trump, man. That's what 2016, 2015, 2017 was, you know?
Yeah, everything out of context.
Yeah, you know.
Hold on tight, guys. This is our last break, so stay tuned. And we are back to the show. So let's hop right in. Well, man, before we completely start wrapping stuff up, I always like to end the show with some words of wisdom. So if there's any words of wisdom you might want to bestow on the listeners today, man, what might it be?
Yeah, well, so first of all, this realm is a magical realm. All of creation is pure magic. Magic is who we are. It's the entire purpose of our existence. There's nothing special about what I do. If I can do it, you can do it. All right. So I want everyone to keep an open mind and start pursuing this stuff because, like I said, you can heal the sick. You can create jobs out of nothing. You can create money. If you can get rid of pedophiles, you know,
it's always a plus.
Yeah. You know, I mean, there's so much amazing stuff you can do with this ability. So I just want to remind everyone, this is what I say, man. Anyone can do this. There's nothing special about me. I've been doing it for a while, but anyone has the ability to do this. Anyone. So I just want to remind everyone that the mind is a weapon and keep it loaded.
Perfect, man. If anyone would like to get in touch with me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofallrealitypodcast@outlook.com, or through social media. Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook are the ones I'm the most active on. or you can also get a hold of me through the submission forum, which is available up at the top of the link tree. And the last way you guys can get a hold of me is by calling or texting the Bizarre Reality Media hotline. That number is 313-364-1551, and you guys can call or text that 24/7. And every single thing that I mentioned is all available in the link tree, which is available down in that show description. And with that, hope you guys enjoyed the conversation. Hope today's show has connected some dots in your own reality, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. Abductees taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey. With a mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board.